All right, thanks everybody. My name is Jason Vertrees, and I work at RealMassive. We're a startup in Austin, so perfect time for the startup week. So I want to talk to you about something that you probably all think can be really boring: commercial real estate and commercial real estate data. But hopefully, I can make it somewhat entertaining. So I titled this "Kicking in the Door on Commercial Real Estate Data," and this will be readily apparent. So let me first tell you who we are. So as a product, we are a commercial real estate search engine, marketing platform, and data source. So we're the conduit through which all commercial real estate information will be traveling. So I'm actually just going to give you a real quick live demo because I like live demos. All right, and here's the website. So you can search for all sorts of types of office space, right? And all different types. And you can search for the markets that we have launched. So we've launched Austin right now, and we're expanding to the rest of these markets in Texas immediately, as in this week. And if you're not here, then you can just do something like Colorado Springs, and you could input your information for there as well. But let's stick to Austin and take a look. Okay, so first off, who here has ever done a search for commercial real estate space? A couple people. How terrible is it? It sucks, right? Yeah. So the first thing you do is you go to the website, and the first thing you do when you click on anyone's search is they say give me $90, right? Just pay me right now, and it's for 1 day's access. It's really, really bad. So anyway, after you initialize, start your search, you'll get all the listings on the right and a nice little list view here, and you can check out this information. You can obviously check out the information you want and hide the information you don't. And on the left here, we have this interactive map. And you can obviously have filters. So let's say I wanted to search for Austin Central Business District. I could do that. So there's downtown Austin. And if you wanted, say, 5,000 square feet to 12,000, you could do this. You could choose different types, like office space again, industrial land, whatever, and set your rate as well. If you click on a space, you'll actually get what we call a space detail view. Yes?
Do you take into consideration parking or transportation?
We do. We do.
B-cycle, monorail.
We certainly have transportation involved. We haven't built it. We're only a year old, so we'll get to that stuff. We're trying to hit the big stuff for us right now.
So what type of geospatial engine are you looking to use? Are you going to be using Esri, or are you going to be developing your own?
Well, as you'll see in a bit, we're built off Google App Engine as well. This is going to turn into a Google commercial, I guess. So here's an example space. You get all these pretty pictures, or not so pretty, but you get some nice marketing pictures, and all the rest of the information you need to make an informed decision on your search. Okay.
Wait, why is the rate on this one $0?
Yeah, I'm down. Take a guess. Take a guess. Why would someone put a 0 rate? Because yes. Yeah. Is it really 0? Of course not. They want you to call and find out. So we are building techniques into our system to get around that. Because we're all about the data and the information. We want it to be correct. So we are building techniques in, and actually one of the things in our sprint right now is to add a button that says, wait, this isn't right. And then we actually start pinging the people who are responsible for that information. This is actually a marketplace. So here's the supply side, and the demand side, or the people searching, they can correct the supply side simply by using the site. And this is free. We also have some interesting algorithms here for finding similar spaces. So we have a lot of inventory, and you obviously don't know all the inventory in Austin. We do, so we'll find the better spaces for you. And this is really just similar spaces. There's no sort of people can't pay to get higher on that list.
So is this data supplied by the users or?
Supplied by the owners, the landlords.
Okay.
They happily gave us this information because what they currently have is pretty terrible. All right, so that's just sort of the search side. If you're a professional and you want to list your information, you can go here and create your own building or space. You have a profile that you can edit. Just your basic. It's a website, right? It's your basic stuff. A portfolio is like, let's say you're looking for space, right? It's just sort of a safe search. You just put it's the favorites, really. You put your spaces you like into a bucket, and you're good to go. And then you can come back and you can share those with other people, and it really helps the search. And there's buildings and spaces in your account and so on. So let's see. Let's go back to the presentation. All right, it's a really fun place to work. This year, in the past 12 months, we raised about $4 million in investment capital. Grew the team to 20 people. We won 5th best small business to work at in Austin, and that's us celebrating at the right. And we launched Austin recently, and we are immediately launching Texas and the rest of the nation very soon. And our operations are set up and our tech set up to explode and to expand extremely quickly. So the next 12 months, keep an eye on us. I think you guys will be surprised at how quickly this is going to take off. Okay, so here's the hook. Why commercial real estate, right? This, like I said, it's probably one of the most boring industries you can think of. Who knows what that is? That's that building? Exactly. So let's do a quick calculation, and we're going to calculate the economic impact of the Frost Bank Tower, just the rent for renting the entire building, just for 1 year, okay? So it's a Class A building in Austin. It's obviously very big. It's 500,000 square feet. It's actually a little bigger. And if you take the rate, which is about $30 a square foot, you add in the OpEx. OpEx is a function of the building, so it's like insurance and fees and cleaning and stuff like that. You get around $50 a square foot for that building. Doing the math, that one building generates $26 million in income. And so just from rent, just one building in Austin. It's just amazing. So next time you look at the Austin skyline, hopefully you guys can have a better appreciation of the value floating above the horizon there, right? It's just truly amazing. That's just one building, just in Austin. And if you go nationwide, the asset base for commercial real estate in the US is $11 trillion with a T, right? If anybody knows investor funding, like what's the market size that they'll get into? $1 billion, right? 11 trillion. So we believe that managing and organizing this information and allowing people to search for it will provide lots of value and help out lots of people. 11 trillion, by the way, is more value than all the gold ever mined in the history of mankind. So, all right, here's what I call it kicking in the door. Our established sort of stodgy competitors are really old and outdated. And this is how they treat their data, right? They charge you for data. So they secret their data behind this door, this aging infrastructure. And if you knock down the door, this is what it is. They've got their data back here, $90 a day, and that's just website access, no API access, right? So it's crazy. This is how we treat data. You know, put the data in, and it's yours, right? So, and to prove, and let me talk about the stack real quick. So we also run off the Google Cloud Platform, and we also have a very good experience with that. Python underlies pretty much everything we do. We love Python. We use Google Maps Engine and the geocoding API and the Places API, so we can do, you know, I think like 100,000 queries a day for limits. We also run, you know, NDB, Memcache, MapReduce, you know, push and pull queues, Search API, Mail, all this other good stuff. We use the Google Compute. GCS is the Google Cloud Storage, essentially like a large hard drive that's got redundancy. It's great. And as Seth said, they take care of all your operational costs, and it's really quite amazing. We also have a bunch of you know, third-party APIs over here, and then on top of that, we build our RealMassive API. The REST API, I'll talk about that in a few minutes. If you're an API developer, you can hit the REST API directly, and if you're making mobile applications, it's also the way you hit it. Add on JavaScript and hit the browser, and then you get the full web app. So our web app uses the API, as does our mobile device, and then any API developers out there can use it as well. So, like I said, we're an API and an SPA, single page app. So I had to throw a little Python in here at least. So, you know, it's just a web app too, or a WSGI app. So you set up your routes. The routes are, you know, they're just they're regexes, and the incoming path is passed off to a handler. And a handler is just a method in a class in a module, and it's beautiful routing. And this example here, the second route here, is our SEO optimized route. So what we used to have is route, and we'd have slash spaces and slash this long key string that, you know, NDB would just look up. Google for SEO had no idea what to do with that because it was just a random number. And so we modified the URL. So you got 2-character country code, 2-character state code, city, postal code. And so now I can say US/Texas/Austin/Frostbank building. And you can hit that. So lots of awesome Pythonicness in our code. We decorate all the time. We generate all the time. And Python and Google App Engine has allowed us to scale and to really grow at an amazing rate. So I'm just tremendously proud and surprised of what we've managed to do in a small amount of time. Let me talk about the API real quick. So it's simply a REST-based API. There's no magic here at all. You auth, you do a get or post or some other RESTful or HTTP method, and you get your response in JSON. Really no magic at all. So the current API support, you use get to retrieve models and resources, and you can also do searches that way as well. So you want to get a list of buildings, API v1 buildings. Okay, so now you guys have a way to get down all the building information in Austin and start doing some analysis. The analytics is the future. I showed you what the asset value is here. If you can provide value and applications on top of that, it's going to be amazing. So if you want to do a search, you can search for availabilities. It's, API v1 spaces, search, there's your query, and then your submarket, the CBD. That will find everything in Austin on Congress in the central business submarket. And if you want to list all the markets we serve, API v1 markets. Yeah, it's a standard REST API. Not, like I said, no magic. You can geo search. You can geo search for markets and spaces as well. So you can pull down different obvious regions of the U.S. Our docs are hosted on Apiary. Apiary is a really cool service. If you guys are making a REST API, I highly suggest you check it out. What you do is you document it, and then you put in your get call, and then you put in your mock response. And then it has everything right there, and they even set up a mock URL for you so that if someone's developing against your code, you can hit their mock server and get down a fake payload. It's really, really cool. All right, future directions. We need to expose the remaining resources and services in our documentation. So complete the documentation examples. We have a lot of the API that's actually done. We just haven't exposed it fully. We're working on that. And we're also creating a developers area and application marketplace. Because of the immense value represented by what we're working with, and the fact that it is a marketplace because there's a meeting of supply and demand, we think there's going to be a large application marketplace. So that's it. I don't have too much to talk about today, but I'll take any questions you guys have. Oh, and like everybody else in town, we're hiring too. So, yeah, go ahead.
So, the fact that you're exposing your API is one of your major differences from your competitors. What do you think people will do with this, or why actually are you doing it? It's an advantage, I can understand fully why, but give some examples, give some detail.
All right, so on Wall Street, there are multi-billion-dollar companies that want to know where to invest in land. And where they want to develop, right? So you have insurance companies and you have other companies that need a very safe place to put money, right? Because they deal with retirement funds and things like that. And if your grandma loses a lot of money, people get upset. So they're looking for safety. Given this information, I can now tell you, well, if you look east of 35 between these two streets, the rate is increasing, at this percentage, and the crime rate's this over here. But if you look west of 35, the values are different over here. How much do you think they're going to pay for information like that? That's the first thing. The second thing is no one has nationwide coverage of this information. Commercial real estate in the US is it's very segmented and out of date. So the two problems we're solving here is the completeness. So the big picture, right? No one has the nationwide view. The second thing is real-time information. So when I first started at RealMassive, one of the examples they gave was a large company, maybe Google, maybe not, would say, listen, we need some space in Austin. Okay, so what do? They contact a representative in Austin and say, okay, go find us some space. And so they get a portfolio of spaces, maybe 10 spaces, right? The guy flies into town, or gal, and they go to the first place. Oh, well, that's actually been leased 3 months ago. Okay, it's the VP driving around, right? Next space. Well, the second floor out of these 3 floors you wanted, that was gone 2 months ago as well. Going to the third place, well, that place doesn't even exist. So this information, 50% of the time, is just wrong. And the way that we built this is it's a real-time information system. You put information in and it updates immediately. The current system, and this just blows my mind, if I own this place here and I wanted to change the square footage rate from 23 to 25, I literally have to go into my email program and email these people and say, would you please change the rate? They might do it, they might not. And it usually takes them about a month to do it. So with API access, we have a couple customers using or want to use our API. They're just going to feed us directly. So there's quite a few things.
So the next stage, if I understand correctly, to your first point, you're thinking about people doing machine learning algorithms on top of your API.
Well, I'm going to be doing some. I'm going to be doing some. So once the data is there, there's I think a lot of value.
So what's the business model behind sort of giving away all your data? Do you have a cost with your API or?
Yeah. So how do we make money?
Yeah.
It's a subscription-based model. So we have a bunch of time-saving tools that we've built on top of the data ingestion process. So the marketing manager is the person that puts all these properties into our system, right? We have a bunch of tools that save, it's usually a woman, we save her about 40 hours a month. So we take some fraction of that value in your bill. And actually that value it's quite a big number per user per month. So that's just the basic, right?
So who's paying in that instance?
The landlords typically pay for the marketing manager to be in our system.
Okay.
So you'll have large commercial real estate companies, and their brokers will be on there, their marketing managers, and how we get it.
So is all the data from the API free to use? Or?
Suck it down. You're going to be rate limited, and you have to off, but other than that.
Yeah, how much machine learning and data mining are you doing yourselves, like for the similar properties? Is that like built into Google App Engine?
No, we handle that ourselves because while Google App Engine does have a lot of good built-ins, they don't know anything about CRE. They're interested in organizing and knowing about that, but they don't have anything, so we had to handle that. Yeah.
So in your evaluation of the cross building, you calculated like the OpEx. Where do you get like the data if it's a disparate property or if you only have a small data point for a large building to calculate the OpEx?
Oh, we get it from the landlord. The landlord just doesn't say that. Okay. So the owners of the buildings, so the current providers out there are marketing platforms and ways to get their information out, and they're so displeased with their current options that getting the information from them has not been difficult.
Do you think this expands to all real estate? I mean, I would assume it would, not just commercial.
So we're attacking commercial. We don't have any desire to hit residential at this point. Commercial it's like healthcare, it's like education, it's healthcare construction. Yeah.
Given the amount of legwork necessary to get accurate data, you have to maintain relationships with the landlords themselves. How do you scale that to the entire nation without hiring a huge staff?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. We don't intend to grow to be like a huge tens of thousands person company because we can do this. We can scale without having to hire all those salespeople. What we do is we have a very, very good customer service team, and they foster those relationships, and we white glove the professionals into our system, and we actually have a team that continues to foster those relationships, and they're all very good. So I mean that's how it is so far. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so you say you've gone live in Austin. I'm wondering what percentage of the commercial real estate in Austin is in your system now?
We have we have more than our competitors, the big guys. And so I think it's something like 60% of the real estate. And we have another, I forget. We're about to do another pretty big dump. There's a lot there. Take a look. Yeah, in the back.
How do you make sure the information is up to date? Say, for example, some spaces rented out. What intention does the landlord have of updating it? Is there a penalty for not keeping it up to date? Or
there is, and it's magic. Actually, I can't tell you like the secret sauce, but we have techniques and tools, and we have timestamps on when the data was last updated. So building information doesn't change. Like this building's not going anywhere, but space information does change very frequently. So we have, there's a decay on the sort of freshness, if you will, of information. So we definitely take that into account.
What, do you keep digging them or something similar?
Yeah. So actually, if your score drops below a certain threshold, you drop off the site because we can't trust your information.
Okay. Do you let the landlords know that there's a scoring system and that they need to maintain their data to ensure that the score is valid? And if there's some type of dispute over the scoring in which the landlord feels like they're providing up-to-date data and feel like the score is unjust, what type of system do you have to negotiate out that type of fallout?
We haven't had any pushback. So it's I think a pretty straightforward process. The better your data is, we've modeled this against reality. If the building's here, and if the data says the building's here, you've got a higher score. If the building says if the information you put in says it's next door, and it's obviously not, your data's going to have a lower score. Cool. Anybody else? I think that's. If you have any questions, please feel free to talk to me afterwards. I'm going to take a motion. Thanks. So Mark from Eagle Eye.
My phone kind of fiddle with the thingy.
Oh, I did.
So, just to mix it up, I decided not to give the same speech about Django and App Engine. So I'll, I'll show you cat pictures instead.
That is a viable startup idea. I know the CEO of Cheeseburger. I mean, can you plug? Actually, do you have that adapt on this side?
No, I have the micro one. But
okay.
Don't you guys
think? Yeah, there's this one here.
Oh, that's not right. That's later.
Oh no.
Oh, might as well just go home now.
Are you plugged in?
I am.
All right. Let's try that one.
Maybe. Hey, there we go.
All right.
Yay. So this presentation may look a little bit similar from 2 months ago. I promise I changed most of it. So I'm Mark Cotton, work at Eagle Eye Networks. We're a startup, shouldn't be a surprise, I guess. And we use Python, we love Python. We're looking to hire a Python developer. So Tim back there has probably talked to each of you who were in the room beforehand. He will continue to harass everyone as they leave. So talk to him, get a job, work with us, it'll be fun. So I'm Mark, I'm just a big nerd. I love programming stuff, I do it at home. Eagle Eye Networks pays me to do this kind of stuff. I love it, and you should come work here too. What we do, probably the next slide. Yeah, we do video security in the cloud. So we have lots of dealers, lots of customers. We actually have one of our cameras up here that's recording this. We have about 14 on this floor. CapFactor is one of our customers, and we do the security for them. So we have thousands of cameras total that are live in our system right now. We have them connected to hundreds of bridges. We have a Linux appliance that goes on site that talks to the cameras and funnels this data up to the cloud. And for scale, we're dealing in uploading terabytes of video each night. And so this is, a massive amount of data that's being sent up to the cloud that we then need to process and analyze and detect people and see if they're stealing things or whatever they're doing. But we're dealing with it on that scale. So I actually took this picture yesterday on my walk home. The police department was pulling over a DeLorean. That was like a legit DeLorean the guy converted over. But let's go back to 2012. So back in 2012,
Boston was this in?
that was on East 6th and Waller.
Okay.
So that away. But yeah, it's like, hey, that guy's getting pulled over. So back in our time machine, we go back to 2012, and we decided at a previous startup I had done Django and Piston, so we started. We went to Django. And we typed, start project my site, and it was really easy, and, we thought we were halfway there. Like, it made it. I followed the blog example, yay, like, happy little puppy. Things were good. But then we started to get to the scale of when you have terabytes of video coming in, you can't just put it in MySQL. You have to put it somewhere, and you have to be able to get to it, and you have to be able to process it. So we couldn't do just the normal, put text into a field and then it shows text to their friends. Like, we had to do real hard stuff with it. So we decided on a couple core principles. So what I want to talk about today is we decided to go API first. I know Jason was talking about that a little bit, where they decided to treat everybody as API consumers. So we built one API, and our website has to take it. Our third-party developers use it. Our mobile apps use it. So we made the constraint on ourselves that we weren't going to give us any special functions. Actually, I can just go here. So only a RESTful API. That's really easy because HTTP verbs aren't changing. Get and delete and put and post are still going to be the same. So test those, get those right, and that knocks out a whole bunch of problems. We decided that we weren't going to render any views on the servers. That was a little bit more controversial at the time, but we decided that if we were really going to take the API serious, we had to dog food it, so we couldn't cheat and render it on the server and then send it down to the client. So everything's sent out as JSON. and the clients have to consume it themselves and have to present it. And then, like I said, everybody uses the same API. Our API is completely open and free, so if you guys want to build on it, you get the same treatment that I get, that everybody gets. So another thing we did is, because we're doing video and we're sending it to the cloud, we have to do real time. And this isn't real time like Twitter's real time, where you can really delay 5 minutes and no one will notice, or the way YouTube comments are, where they show it to you but kind of delay propagating out. This has to be like real time, like, you know, someone's breaking in and shooting someone, and, you know, police need to be able to see that. We can't have like a 5 minute tape delay. So like hard real time, like, you know, serious. And smarter people than me wrote this. But when you do this, when you look at real time in Python, you have a couple options. You can use Twisted. There's probably other ones, but you can do Python for it. But we decided to take a little bit different approach, where we wrote that core piece in C, and then we just wrote small Python clients who subscribe to it to our own API. So our system that sends out our email alerts is a small Python client using the same API that everybody else has. So we follow this philosophy the whole way through, and it's reduced the amount of staff that we need by quite a bit. We're doing everything we can as an asynchronous request. So because we have real-time data coming in, we don't have time that we can sit and block on anything. Everything has to be done asynchronously, which causes debugging headaches if you're not used to it, but eventually you form a drinking habit, I guess. We also, this one's another one that was up for debate. We first started off with Django and the ORM, and we were back at the happy puppy slide. We were all excited, life was wonderful. And then we decided, well, we need to be able to scale this database out to multiple data centers, because different countries have different laws about video. So a customer in Japan can't be sending their video out of the country to the US. It needs to stay in Japan, or Germany, or Pakistan, or wherever else it could be. So we had to distribute the database. We didn't have an option. So we decided we would go with LDAP, which is probably the least cool option possible. But, you know, it's worked since the 60s, so we decided we'd be cool with it. So we went document-based, it's not relational, it's easily replicated, and it's super fast on reads. The only downside is you have to write your own indexes and you have to fix your own relationships, which are like the only two things database do for you, so it's kind of pointless. So yeah, you know, if you just can write your own indexes, then it's super fast. So yeah, this is fun. This was the hard way of doing it, but it makes it so we can spin up, or we can start up whole new data centers very easy. We do our own hosting, our own hardware, so when we spin up a new instance, what that means is a whole bunch of boxes get sent to Japan, and, you know, we send them a nice note that says, you know, with pictures, please plug in here and push the on button, and then we provision it remotely. So what else we do is we do HTTP requests between our machines. And we had to do this for scaling reasons. We had to do this because when we replicate data, we may choose to replicate a US customer across data centers. And so because of that, we can't make the assumption that they're always going to be on a private LAN together. We can't make the assumption that we control both ends of that wire. So we have to use HTTP for it. One of the great packages for this, this is gRequest. I'm not sure if anyone else has used that here. Anyone? Has anyone here used request library? All right, then you already know how to use gRequest. The same thing, except it's asynchronous, and so same API, extremely easy to use. So when you run into a problem where you need things to be asynchronous, just import that and life will get nice. So we love it. We started making some tweaks on it on the 1.x branch, and they've since moved to the 2x branch. So we're in the process of straightening that out. But I love it, highly recommend it. Yeah, and so because we're a video company, you know, we have to watch videos. So here's some stuff that has happened, you know, from, this is here at the 5th floor Capitol Factory. So this is stuff that our cameras have caught. And so I kind of wanted to highlight it because what we're doing is, you know, we do the boring business security. This is down on the 5th floor if you haven't had a chance to do that. Someone else also tried to steal the red one that was here up on the 16th floor. If you guys remember that one. We didn't get it because of how our camera's positioned, but evidently they got it all the way down to the 1st floor, and then when security asked them why they were trying to steal a giant beanbag, they just ran away. So I don't think they thought it out, but they got giant thing into it. Another thing very important, here's my puppy. Yes, now she's startled. I don't know why she did that, but the nice part is I can be at work and I can stare at my puppy, so that is a very good reason to have security cameras. Puppies. Yeah. And probably have something more. So we're on 5th and Brazos. You should come work for us. But this bicyclist, we were looking at the camera one day, and he had a bad day, right about here. We were just like looking at our cameras, and we're like, oh wow, that guy just crashed. You'll find the video. Thankfully, Jevin, he works for us, and he went over and asked him if the guy was okay.
Do you support zones and stuff like that?
Yeah, we do. So what we'll do is we'll actually be able to detect objects. So instead of detecting just that pixels have changed, we actually try to wrap it up and detect it as an object. So we say, as they're coming into the screen, this looks a lot like a hand, which connects a lot like an arm, which goes to a body. And we say, hey, that's a person. We're now going to treat it like that. That's some of the real-time processing. And then this right here, this is our this is our alley back behind us. So, yeah.
This was girls that started doing that too. That would be impressive, but not really appropriate for APOD.
Oh. All right, well.
I have one question for you, which is actually, it's interesting because you have your own hardware that you're shipping around, right?
Yes, we do.
So have you guys discussed like the contingency of what happens when you get a national security letter? Because you mentioned Pakistan, so I was just thinking about...
So national security letter, it's in Pakistan. I assume the Pakistan government will raid the data center and things will get blown up.
Not specifically with the Pakistani installation, but that's
the reason why there's actually laws. So there's safe harbor laws that actually require that we put video in country. So Germany's pretty hardcore about it, where they want it that if they say, hey, you need to give us this data, the US government comes to us and says, you need to give us this data, we say, it's in Germany. You guys can't just seize it because, it's in Germany. So they require it that way, we do it. I really hope that we don't ever have to deal with that, but that is something other countries are requiring for that reason. So,
and also in terms of the machine learning question, like with the various things, are you guys, is that a significant part of the effort that you're doing then? Is on kind of this?
Yeah. So the bigger vision. This is where I go into startup pitch mode. So the bigger vision of what we're doing isn't just taking something that wasn't in the cloud and then putting it in the cloud and charging for it. The bigger vision is that there's big data, and then that pales in comparison to the size of actual HD video data. And no one is really effectively analyzing that video. What happens is you have 20 cameras in a building, they're recording 24 hours a day, and so you lose by a factor of 20 to 1. So every day you're not checking the cameras, they're getting 20 times ahead of you. And you're just losing all that data. So the real cool part, and the thing we're really excited about, is the security is important, but another thing's important of how many people are in your store right now? Or what is the traffic flow? How effective are the displays for getting people to come to them? When we have a sale and we move stuff from the middle of the aisle to the front of the aisle, does that affect it? How long are people waiting? And these are really trivial problems. If you want to see how long a line is, you can just put the camera above the cash register and measure out and see how many people are there and how effective the line is, and then you can alert on that. So you can say, you know what, the average queue length is 4 people. So there's a lot of really fun problems that we can deal with there. You can automatically have people go in and out of the parking garage based on their license plate number. So there's a lot of fun analysis that can be done that is very trivial to do in Python. So we're recruiting people to work with us internally, and then we're also getting people to work on our API. We're making it available so all of our customers will have the ability to click a checkbox and say, yes, I do want this license plate recognition that's provided by a third party. And then we just do the billing straight through. And the API developers get access to that customer's data after they've said they can, and we pass the billing straight through to them, and everybody's happy. It makes us look better.
Are you partnering with any kind of beacon companies? So you talked about the grocery store scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The beacon knows that that MAC address is near them, for example, the Bluetooth ID.
Mm-hmm.
But you now have video of their actual posture, their excitement level, lack of excitement, back and forth, et cetera. The beacon doesn't have a lot of granularity if it's 3 feet from the display or 7 feet. Are you partnering with anybody to be able to send them video for them to do their own? Because in public, there's an expectation of privacy. You can send this all you want. They can probably pay you for it.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet, but that's actually a really good idea. We've done access control because that's easy because they're swiping a badge and we know the name to the badge. We're also doing purchases because we know that these are the people who are buying this item that was on sale. But the beacon is a really good idea of correlating that data. And so in our API, it's a REST-based API, so you would take the information from the beacon and you would send it to us with the timestamp and the data that you want. It's just JSON. We would overlay that onto the video and we would make it searchable on our side. So you'd be able to search and say, show me the video every time I've seen this person, and we would be able to show you the clips.
Do you deal with any of the video recognition stuff yourself, or do you just use libraries that are developed in research?
So I've written 2, and the only reason I've written 2 is because I've done 2 hackathons so far this year. So I'm sure this number will go up as I go to each hackathon. So I've done a face recognition just using OpenCV. So I just used the normal hard classifier that came with it, which was very low hanging fruit. And then I've also done the access control one, where I was using an open source Arduino that I talked about from 2 months ago. So both of those have used off-the-shelf components that I've just plugged in, but we are looking for people to step that up and use better classifiers.
Kind of a follow-up, is there any research that you're aware of that you're really excited about in the future?
Me personally or the company? I can speak
know,
with,
either.
I can speak for me personally. I really love the idea of being able to pick out demographics of how effective your business is being. And it sounds a little bad on the surface, but it's actually really effective. To be able to say, I'm going to take images of my customers who are in the store, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to run it through human-powered search. So I'm friends with the guys at Crowdflower, but Mechanical Turk would be this. And so you would take the image data, you would send it off as a micro job where people would tag it with 2 or 3 words. And so they would say male, 18 to 35, and you would get this data, and you would now get this really impressive near real-time stream of who's actually using your product, who's actually purchasing it. And I think the power of opening that up would be just amazing for resellers. So that's what excites me personally. Oh, yeah, back here.
Isn't everything you're describing terrifying? You're saying cloud video with machines analyzing everything, so I can see what did this person do their entire day, have it on video, have your machines follow them.
So I like to argue, so I provide a counterpoint to it. What I would say is, yeah, there's always a potential for things to be abused. If I were to take this camera and I were to sneak it into smoke detectors and not tell people, that would be like utterly creepy and horrible. But the fact that what we're doing is we're putting them in buildings for the security, we're putting them in retail shops. It makes it more fair game, in my opinion. The people peeing on the wall, behind us, they shouldn't have been doing that, so I feel less bad about them. But yeah, it has definite potential to be abused.
So there are criminals, therefore whatever you do is okay.
No. It's humorous, and I didn't shame them. We didn't show their faces, and we did the lower definition. But no, it's privacy. Privacy is an issue, and it really is it's a varying shades between totally right and totally wrong. So.
I guess, what is your policy if, like let's say the NSA wants some of this data?
I'm not the CEO, so I don't say that. But I hear they, have good ways of getting data without asking. So that's just what I hear. So I don't think they're going to come to me and, ask me for data. And if they did, they'd probably lock me up first. So yeah, I don't know. That is a serious concern, and now that I can put on my activist hat, I would say that's things people in technology should be concerned about. Everyone here, we should be very concerned, because if our customers don't trust us to protect their data, then it really hurts what we're doing in technology.
You say you're uploading terabytes and terabytes a day. How much of that is being stored? You keep a day, a month, a year's worth of video?
So what we do is our subscription plans work where people pay for the amount of storage they want in the cloud. So to keep a single HD camera for 7 days in the cloud is $5 a month. We do custom plans to 30 years. It's really just how much they want to pay for that data.
How much do people typically choose? What's the longest?
So most people do, I would say the 90th percentile is inside 14 to 30 days. We have the outliers that try to store it as least as possible. So that would be the customer in Panama who can't upload very much. So he wants very, very little. And on the opposite end, we have some customers that just say, just store it forever and we'll just keep writing you checks. Just give us a number and we'll keep writing because we want it everywhere. But most people are within 14 to 30 days. Oh yeah.
And that's with that data size, what storage solutions are you using?
So Eric actually has a better answer. We've kind of gone the Google commodity route. So what we've done is we've taken a lot of commodity hardwares, or a lot of commodity hard drives, plugged them into a 4U box as tight as we can get them. We're doing our own replication instead of doing RAID. And so what's really cool is in a 2U half-depth box, we're able to get 48 terabytes. And so we are just stuffing them in. Because most of it is so I/O bound, not CPU bound at that point, it's really about what motherboard can give us the most SATA ports to plug in. And so we are just, stuffing everything in. CPU usage is very, very low, and so we can get just normal, a commodity motherboard and an i5 and be fine. Does that help?
That helps. I'm just curious with the privacy concerns and the idea that you said, you made, I think, a really interesting comment that you don't necessarily own both sides of the wire, and if you're shipping hardware out, your storage is an interesting kind of choke point to understand where your scaling is and also where your processing is, where your data is, where you recall.
So we do processing in 2 points. We have a local bridge that's on site that will actually do a vast majority of the processing before it ever gets sent up to the cloud. And it does that because it's more efficient to check the data if it's something that we want before we transmit it, instead of transmitting it and then throwing it away when it gets there. We've had to pay to send junk at that point. So we do a lot of processing on site before we ever send it. And then after that, now it's a matter of encrypting it and changing keys to try to keep it as safe as we can at both ends. Oh, yeah.
So analyzing all this data is a pretty tough problem. Could you go into a little more detail what you're doing, if you're applying some sort of deep learning, or if there's a feedback mechanism, if you detect something as interesting and the user thinks it's not interesting or it's normal behavior, are you doing any of that? Or?
We're not using neural networks right now. Right now we're using human-powered search. So one of the great benefits is that we have customers that are paying for this data, which means they already have an inherent interest in it. So part of our strategy hasn't been we're not paying people to look over the data for us. We have customers who are already paying because they want this data. And so a lot of our strategy has been opening up, letting them have tools to look at the data, easily access it, and then annotate it and download it. And so because of that, they're able to quickly find patterns faster than we are. And the feature requests that are coming in is that, so one feature request that comes in from retail shops is they will have, we're open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. and I want to graph the activity, so a histogram of the activity throughout the day, and I want alerts based on the outliers of that histogram. You kind of be surprised that a tea place, came up with that idea. Not necessarily in those words, but that's what they wanted, and so that feature is being driven directly from the customer, as opposed to us, getting a bunch of smart people in a room to imagine what they might want.
So two, I guess, so you mentioned a tea place, which seems pretty small scale. So how many customers are you actually fielding right now?
So I can answer that we're, hundreds of customers,
okay.
Thousands of cameras.
Right.
Yeah, so we officially launched in January of this year. We just really announced a round for Michael Dell personally. So we are growing, and we're definitely moving up. But yeah, I really, customers are in the hundreds right now.
So second question is the videos that you showed, you just introduced them as kind of like, we found this guy doing this thing. Do you guys just have like streams or sit around and eat lunch? Like, how do you get anything done at work?
Well, it's kind of funny. So the camera that I showed you of the big red bag was actually down on the 5th floor of the private office here at the Capital Factory. So I was actually looking at that because I was coming up here to work on it and readjust one of the cameras. So I had that open and I saw it. And then it was my friend who did it, so I figured it was okay to show it. The issue that we had, the other one was my dog. The bike wreck was just we were going to lunch and we just saw it. That's always a cheap laugh. And then people peeing in the alley. We actually have kind of a funny story. So Joe Biden was here a couple weeks ago. If you remember that whole traffic nightmare, he was actually on the other side of that alley. So we were looking at our cameras, and those two cameras were red, and we were trying to figure out why they were red. And the Secret Service had come and just taped solo cups over our cameras. So that was a case of where we looked at our monitor because it's kind of a sketchy alley, and so we have cameras around our building. For our own sake, we just looked, and two cameras were red on our monitor. But yeah, so we were doing that with our own cameras or people we have permission of. We wouldn't get anything done if we just had walls and walls of monitors. Most of it would be incredibly boring though.
Yeah.
Like if you ever looked at like the parking lot camera of a landscape company, it is just horrifically boring. Yeah.
Do you have cameras you can move from the remote location?
Yeah, so there's PTZ cameras, and that's definitely an option. And so that would let you, be able to change and move and zoom in a camera.
If any of us were to come work for you, could we decorate our office with walls and walls of monitors?
I was just saying that's a recruiting tool to have the evil layer, right?
You can. That's a good draw for you. All right, so there's a lot of, it's a hot job market, so a lot of people asking for signing bonuses, One guy's asking for M3. If you just want a couple monitors, I think I have some in my house I can give you. If that's the hang up, man, we can take care of you.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
So is Derek from Golden Frog here?
Yeah. Quick spiel. Don't have any slides or anything of nature. Actually, Brian, you're here. You should come up. You wrote most of this code I'm going to talk about. Okay.
So I think that Derek emailed me, and I think our emails crossed, right? Basically. Yeah. So I sent out the meeting announcement, and so they got in touch and they wanted to talk about Golden Frog real quick and some of the things that they're doing. And I think it's a kind of an interesting sort of contrast or whatnot between sort of the observation surveillance technologies from Eagle Eye, and then you guys are almost exactly on the opposite side of that.
Yeah, and it's so Golden Frog. I don't know if anybody's heard of us before. We are an Austin-based company. We actually have a 20-year history here in Austin. Data Foundry, Giganews, Texas.net is actually the original company. So we're not your typical startup from that standpoint. We're a startup within a company. Golden Frog is responsible for Viper VPN, Dump Truck, and Cypher. Those are the three products in which we are kind of flagship products. Viper VPN itself is a personal VPN. Everyone aware of what a VPN is, how they work, kind of idea of VPN into systems. Our systems are for protecting yourself. Basically, it's not about anonymity. It's about being able to control your data and say, I want to lock my computer, my connection down to wherever I'm going, so I control in and out what's happening. We have some unique features like kill switch, which allow us to say if we're unable to connect to our VPN, if you're not able to connect to our VPN, don't let any traffic in or out. That's something we offer with our services. It's on the iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, on Linux, on anything. So that's one of the reasons I was asked a question about privacy. It's a very interesting market from that standpoint. Our core tenets, what we believe in, is that you have the ability to be on the internet. We want to give access to everyone. We don't want to restrict access. So the idea behind our tool is that you can go use it to access the internet from other parts of the world. If they block you, you can go access outside systems. Also, just so you protect yourself. We started GoldenFrog 5 years ago. I think it's about 5 years ago. Then Brother Snowden came out and changed the world, and that was about 2 years ago. And all of a sudden, we had this nice little hockey stick. And Viper VPN was all over the place. VPN technologies, high my ass, things of that nature. So we took that, and actually before Viper VPN really blew up, we had Dump-Truck, which is an idea of cloud-based storage, but we host everything. We own everything. We own every single piece of hardware that we use. And we host it in our data centers of our parent company, Data Foundry. We have data centers all over the world, the co-locations. And that's kind of the focus of the product. Focus of the idea is that when you store data with us, we don't care about what it is. You control it, you take it off, you put it on, things of that nature. GoldenFrog itself is actually out of Zurich. That's where our headquarters is. The idea there is so we can protect our data from the NSA. So that's the kind of idea behind a lot of what we do as a company culture. Cypher is an idea of doing encrypted messaging. So much like two-form authentication apps that allow you to communicate with each other, Cypher is a way to kind of protect your communication. It's very, what would you call it? I mean, you wrote the actual service itself. I mean, it's a, not no knowledge, but it's minimal knowledge. We know enough to send the message, but we know nothing else after that. So I'll let you speak in a second, actually. That's why I came one more little spiel in there. We use every language you can imagine to build our systems. We have 20 years of history here. So C, Java, C++, Scala, Python, Perl, lots of Perl actually, lots of Python now. A lot of our new systems we're building in Python because of the awesomeness of Python, what you can do with it, a lot of the services themselves, the libraries, Flask, Tornado, things of that nature, how they scale, how they grow. And that's actually where we took things like our Viper app, we had access issues, we had API issues, and we needed to co-locate it, spread it out across the world. We used Python to do that, actually. We used Python to build our secure API services for Cypher itself, for handling the message transactions. So I'd like to have you give a little bit of what we do, how we do it, how it works.
Yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about what we use Python for. So mostly we use Python for backend APIs. We use Flask as a framework because a lot of our APIs are really lightweight. We just do one small thing, connect to MySQL, get some data, return it in JSON. We have to scale quite a bit because all of our VPN apps and mobile apps are constantly connecting, disconnecting. They're pinging us for their connection status. So we do several hundred requests per second spread out amongst 6 servers running Flask. We use MySQL, the Cypher, the encrypted messaging stuff. We use Tornado because we want to have WebSockets and more like streaming data. And I mean, that's pretty much it.
One of the reasons that we like Python as a service, as one of the languages that we choose, is that in the end, when you build the system, it's pretty simple. When you look at it, it's simple in the sense that it's easier to read, it's easier to understand, it's not too complex. When you start looking at some of the C-based code that's out there, some of the Scala code or Perl, you start to get kind of lost in the ether of it all. These systems, what's pretty elegant about it when we talk about like DAPI or distributed API, that's Flask, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Flask app. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It uses replicated databases for our auth and our account databases, which are managed internally. We co-locate them, we distribute them out, and then we have these APIs that all are served through very clean and simple applications, through APIs, that is.
Yeah, and in Python, there's a library for everything. So like we've rewritten like Scala apps in Python, and I'd be like reading the Scala code and being like, oh, this is a